So did you initially support the war or oppose it, or how'd you feel about that?
Yeah, initially, I think a lot of people supported the war. And then what happened was it was the first war that we've had where television was also something new, and it brought it right into our houses.
Yeah.
And I think after a while, people did not support the war because of everything they started seeing.
Yeah. So your feelings just changed a lot as the war progressed.
Correct.
But you watched a lot of TV, and did you only see like destruction or victory? What else
Well,
did you see?
yeah, there was some victory. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think the news or the government was trying to sell it to us as a victory. But I think because you saw so much on TV that didn't look like a victory because people were dying and I mean just all the I mean not just us but the Vietnamese people that were left homeless, all the poverty that was being created. I mean we had never seen anything like that before, and, on television because I don't know how much you know, but coming out of the 50s was kind of like a fun era, and then all of a sudden the 60s and the war, it was like totally upside down.
Yeah. Did the music at the time also like impact your feelings about the war, or how did it reflect?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was tons of protest music, tons of most of the music I would say was against the war. I don't really recall any songs that were probably positive, but absolutely, the music consumed what was going on in the Vietnam War. I actually have an older brother, 3 years older than me, that at the time there was the draft. Anybody that turned 18, you were required to register, and at that time he felt like he was going to get drafted and probably go into the Army and probably go to Vietnam. So what he did was he actually enlisted into the Air Force.
Oh.
And he was lucky enough that he never saw Vietnam. He was in Europe and other places, but he never got an opportunity to go to Vietnam.
Did the war change your views about the military?
Yeah, I definitely didn't want to go. I was fortunate enough. Well, if you went to college, you were automatically abstained from being drafted. But then at some point they took that away, and they had this lottery where everybody based on 365 days, everybody's birthday was assigned a number. They just basically pulled it out of a hat. And again, I was fortunate enough that my number was like 360, or it was pretty high. So my chances of getting drafted even then were pretty high and pretty scary.
Did you personally know anyone else who fought in the war?
Not like personally. I mean, I know of people. I mean, I know one guy in my neighborhood where I grew up in Philadelphia. He did 3 or 4 tours. I mean, I didn't know him personally, but I just knew of him. I know a few other people that were, actually, now that I think about it, it was 2 of my neighbors. I lived in the city. There were row houses. Actually, we had 2 of our neighbors that went there. One guy actually came back pretty messed up, shrapnel in his back and his legs and that kind of thing. But so yeah, I actually did know a few people.
So how did you feel about like the ending of the war? Did it change the way you lived again anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it felt like it was worthless. I mean, it felt like I think we had over 50,000 Americans that died there, and it just felt like, I mean, what were we there for? I think a couple months after we pulled out, I think they took over the South again, if I'm not mistaken. So it felt like it was totally useless. We wouldn't win anything.
How did you view the Vietnamese?
I don't know. I mean, they probably, I guess I felt sympathetic for them. I mean, they were kind of caught in between 2 powers, the communists and the Americans, and they were sort of the pawns in the middle that were, had to go through this. Yeah.
What do you think this war brought for future wars and future conflicts?
Well, like I mentioned, I think Americans they're a lot more, what's the word, cautious now about bringing troops in, or at least that number of troops into a war. I think first of all, I don't think the Americans would probably stand for it. I mean, we did have troops in Afghanistan, but not to the number that we had in Vietnam. Vietnam was just, I don't know, it was just a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I was mentioning before about this was the first war that the TV really brought the war right into the house, which basically caused all the protests and caused all the dissent with people being against the war, because we're being told by the government that, yeah, we're winning, but we're looking at the news and we're seeing that it doesn't appear that we're winning and we're losing all these lives. And that's, what incited people to protest against it.